Welcome to the Benning Report. Coming up in this edition, female soldiers get a chance to participate in history.
And tryouts for Best Ranger competition begin.
Later, flying pumpkins are spotted over Fort Benning. Welcome to the Benning Report. I'm Melissa Bell.
And I'm David Wright with the Fort Benning Public Affairs Office. Thanks for watching.
The Army has selected 31 female soldiers to serve in the Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade as observers and advisors for a potential Ranger course that would include both female and male Ranger students. During a week-long training event, the observers and advisors were evaluated on their ability to perform specific Ranger tasks, including the Ranger Physical Assessment that requires 49 push-ups and 59 sit-ups, each within a 2-minute time period, a 5-mile run in 40 minutes or less, and 6 chin-ups. The women also experience the Combat Water Survival Assessment, which tests swimming skills as well as addresses any fear of heights. After land navigation, the women then moved on to the Darby Queen, a 1-mile 26-obstacle course at Fort Benning's Camp Darby prior to a 12-mile ruck march. The Ranger tasks were chosen to prepare female observers and advisors to understand and gain insight into the mental and physical demands placed on Ranger students during the first week of the course, should the Army decide in January to go forward with the assessment. Fort Benning's Maneuver Center of Excellence Commanding General, Major General Scott Miller, said he was pleased with both the quality and quantity of volunteers who signed up, adding that their performance and professionalism during the week was extraordinary, as the group did very well for what was a very challenging week for any soldier. Colonel David Fivecoat, commander of the Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade and home of the Ranger Training Course, also praised the performance of the female soldiers as they experienced Ranger training events, and is confident that the brigade has selected the most qualified to return and work with them as advisors and observers. If the decision is made to continue with the first class of male and female students, the selected observers and advisors will attend a training program, as well as observe 2 Ranger classes prior to the arrival of the first class with male and female Ranger students. Women observers will observe all aspects of the course, both academic and administrative, to ensure that the standards of the course remain the same for all students, as well as advise and assist Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade leadership and instructors. Observers will not be considered Ranger instructors, nor will they evaluate, train, or direct course students, and course standards will not change. If the Army decides to go forward with the assessment, the first class with male and female Ranger students could begin in the spring. For more information, visit the Fort Benning homepage at benning.army.mil and click on Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade under the Maneuver Center tab. David?
Thanks, Melissa. The Commander's Cup is a fun competition among soldiers that for some can help heal the wounds of war. We take a look at how soldiers from the Warrior Transition Battalion participate and how it aids in the recovery process.
Am I just going down the middle here, I guess?
Each year, November is Warrior Care Month. For soldiers in the Warrior Transition Battalion, that means the Commander's Cup is up for grabs. The Commander's Cup is a week-long event in which the companies of the WTB compete in various sports and other adaptive activities. The mission of the Warrior Transition Battalion is to care for the wounded, ill, or injured soldier with not only the best medical care available, but with transitional services to allow the soldier to re-enter the Army or move on to the civilian sector.
Well, occupational therapy is about occupation of daily living. And the Commander's Cup is not the end-all, but is a treatment facilitator to allow soldiers to know what they can do, not focus on what they cannot do.
While the Commander's Cup included everything from playing cards to a chili cook-off, the most fiercely competed events were seated volleyball and wheelchair basketball, both of which play a major role in the WTB's comprehensive transition plan.
5 days a week at a minimum 150 minutes. They'll participate in volleyball or the wheelchair basketball. We also have aquatics, yoga. We'll start up archery and potentially some tennis later on in the year. But yes, this is a part of their physical domain where they actually set goals.
The WTB has the capacity to handle up to 480 soldiers, drawing from Army Reserve, National Guard, and active duty. The battalion works closely with the Soldier Family and Assistance Center, which provides such support as financial, educational, and career counseling.
Just a great resource that we have. Again, we invite them to all the things that we have. They are an integral part of our multidisciplinary team.
Prior to the award ceremony, the Warrior Transition Battalion faced off against Auburn University's wheelchair basketball team in a highly competitive but friendly exhibition game. Then, Warrior Care Month was capped off with HHC taking home this year's Commander's Cup. David Wright, Fort Benning TV.
Increased security measures will impact visitors to Fort Benning beginning in the new year. I spoke with the Chief of Guards to find out the facts and what you need to know. Installation access procedures will be changing at Fort Benning as officials achieve full compliance with Homeland Security Presidential Directive 12, a directive requiring installations vet all visitors and uncleared contractors prior to entering the installation. And that means background checks beginning January 1st.
The visitor passes in the past vetted vehicles. Now we are vetting people, and that's the biggest change. Everything is focused on the individual person needing access to the installation.
For those who have a common access card, military ID, military dependent ID, or an automated installation entry card, they're considered cleared for entry and will not need a background check. For those who cannot present one at the gate, you will be considered a visitor and in need of a visitor's pass.
We're going to ask you for a government ID. If you cannot provide it, you're going to be turned around, denied access, sent back to the Visitor Control Center to undergo a background check to receive a temporary one-day pass, even if you're in uniform.
Visitors' passes will be issued outside the 185 gate and can be valid up to 6 months. Background checks will be processed through the National Crime Information Center Interstate Identification Index and will take about 10 minutes. There are 11 different reasons that a visitor can be denied access, including a current arrest warrant in the database, a felony conviction within the past 10 years, and a firearm or explosives conviction. While some factors can be mitigated, 2 cannot.
The 2 denials are unable to identify the individual, whether they are purposely providing us fraudulent information or there's just no other way that we can verify who they are. You'll be denied access, and that is not mitigatable. You can't seek some type of appeal to that. The other way is if you come up on the terror screening database. If you are identified as being on that list, you won't be notified and you will be denied access to the installation. Neither are mitigatable. Everything else has an appeals process.
Fort Benning has over 9,600 daily visitors to post, which will quickly eclipse Fort Bragg's 91,000 a year. As a training installation, officials want to make sure family and friends can still attend graduations and are working to smooth the process for large events.
They're going to have a lot of loved ones who want to come out here and see graduation. So we're setting up a process now, get the word out to them on how to go about getting vetted prior to ever arriving at the gate, which will speed up their entrance time.
Fort Benning expects that the DoD-wide initiative will have little impact to those who already have a CAC or military ID. Their advice is to use the CAC and military lanes at the gate since they will likely move faster. For more information, visit the Fort Benning homepage at benning.army.mil. Melissa Bell, Fort Benning TV. Coming up next, the Army Reserve National Guard holds Best Ranger Tryouts.
They say he disbanded 7 terrorist sleeper cells simply by straining their patience. He knows the OPSEC handbook by heart because he authored it. He publicly claims to have a fulfilling job in human resources. He shreds his grocery lists and is the only man to encrypt his tweets. His passwords are 30 characters with no words and no repeating characters. They change once a week and he has never written one down. He can complete the 5-part OPSEC process in 1 step. He is the most secure man in the world.
I always practice OPSEC, and so should you. Stay secure, my friends.
We are deeply indebted to the young men and women who choose to serve our nation. Each year, nearly 130,000 active, Guard, and reserve soldiers will reintegrate into their communities. Soldiers bring exceptional work ethic, discipline, and experience back to the American public. To assist soldiers, the Army created the Soldier for Life program. This is an Army program committed to ensuring lifelong success for our soldiers and their families, connecting them with opportunities for employment and education after their military service. Our goal is for soldiers leaving the military to be career ready. I ask each of you to reach out to these dedicated Americans. They will contribute greatly to your organization and your community. Let's take care of our soldiers and their families who have sacrificed for this great nation. Army strong.
From Colorado to Pennsylvania, National Guardsmen from across the country descended upon Fort Benning with hopes of landing a spot in the Army's most prestigious competition.
The Best Ranger competition takes place on Fort Benning every spring, and while that may seem to be a long way off, the Army Reserve National Guard has already begun its preparations with its annual Best Ranger assessment.
There are a lot of guys out there that want to compete, but this gives us an opportunity to get all of them together and kind of handpick the best 2 or 3, 4 teams so that we're representing the Guard as well as we can.
It's too early to know how many teams will be allocated to the Army Reserve National Guard, but from this field, 9 soldiers will be selected, enough to field 4 teams with 1 alternate. The candidates are drawn from across the country, with 7 different states represented in this year's assessment, in an effort to field the strongest teams possible.
This is the correct process, that you should go through the National Guard. They put out a tasker, you come, challenge everybody, and then those guys who make the cut at the end are the ones who get to come back and train.
To win Best Ranger requires mastery over physical, mental, and technical challenges. In the heat of competition, even events that might seem simple present their own difficulties.
The technical stuff, a lot of times you just get excited, you rush through things, you make little mistakes here and there. So being technically proficient is pretty important, just trying to stay calm under the pressure and make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, paying attention to detail.
This assessment period is only for 36 hours, not a lot of time to determine the best competitors. So this time is spent focused on physical challenges to let Coach Burns know who is in the best shape. The other aspects can be covered in the train-up early next year.
The technical side is what wins it on top of the physical, but you're not going to get dropped from the course from not knowing how to do some type of technical. But if you fall out of a ruck march or you can't make the time, then you're done from the comp completely.
The 2014 Best Ranger competition was bittersweet for Captain Killian, who finished just short of his goal. He was one half of the team that dominated the whole weekend, losing out on points due to procedural mistakes on one event on the final day.
It's a great competition. It's a hard competition, but nobody remembers second place at the end of the day. I mean, the only people that are remembered the following year are the guys who won the competitions.
The Best Ranger competition will be held on Fort Benning in April, and after 2014, anything less than winning it all will be a disappointment for the Army Reserve National Guard. David Wright, Fort Benning TV.
Some say unmanned systems are a thing of the future, but from the Raven to the Predator and explosive ordnance disposal, unmanned systems are playing more of a role in military operations. We take a look at the new technologies in the most recent Maneuver Battle Lab experiment. Fort Benning's Maneuver Battle Lab hosted a manned-unmanned teaming event known as MUM-T that evaluated how soldiers on the ground utilize unmanned air and ground assets to increase their situational awareness, lethality, and survivability.
And what we did was we attempted to team ourselves with all this technology and then figure out what the difference was between the way we normally would fight and how we would fight with the technology and whether that gives us an advantage and or disadvantage.
According to the most recent Army In and Out Call report, many occupations involving unmanned systems are looking to plus up their numbers, looking good for the technology. This includes UAS repairers and UAS operators. At this experiment, soldiers were able to test the latest in unmanned aviation, including a nano UAS known as the Cargo Pocket.
One of the problems with the air assets up to this point has been the noise, and the small one, it really, you could fly at 5 feet from somebody and then they don't know what's there, so it's nice to be able to have that stealth.
Ground technologies also impress soldiers with their modularity, versatility, and adaptability. One such vehicle was the Mutt, capable of carrying up to 600 pounds of gear with seemingly endless capabilities for attachments, including weapon systems, litters, and even equipment.
You carry what you fight with, so depending on the mission, you could be out there 4 or 5 days and I have to carry all my food and water and ammo. So having this Mutt be able to carry all that additional ammo, now I'm lighter, I can move quicker, still get to the objective, even faster, and now I have 50 cals that I can bring. So our odds of success and bringing everybody back home is substantially increased.
As the Army moves towards a smaller, more lethal force, the partnership between soldiers and unmanned systems is being evaluated to ensure that soldiers have every capability possible on the battlefield. Melissa Bell, Fort Benning TV. After the break, Fort Benning observes German-Italian Memorial Day. But first, Fort Benning's Picture This.
Everybody knows what that guy is.
That guy is the wasted guy at the bar who no one wants to talk to.
Obnoxious, they're picking fights. He's a jerk to his friends.
It's a big turnoff, Everyone's like, oh, that guy and that poor girl that's with him.
That guy's just gonna get us in trouble every night. It doesn't change.
Because you're that guy when you drink. I don't like that guy. We don't like that guy. Nobody likes that guy.
It's the only museum in the world dedicated to telling the complete naval story of the American Civil War. It's the National Civil War Naval Museum, right here in Columbus, just 5 minutes from Fort Benning. Here you can see a 200-foot Confederate ironclad recovered from the Chattahoochee River in the 60s, and check out special events that include historical reenactments of sailors of the Confederate and Union navies.
Blood ran down the deck.
Log on to portcolumbus.org for more information. Ever wonder about the smell of smoke and the sound of explosions on Fort Benning? If you do, we have your answers at Smoke and Sound on the Fort Benning homepage. There you can find an interactive sound map and schedule of the many armor exercises on post. And there's also a schedule of controlled burns, so the sound of the explosions and smell of smoke don't come as a surprise. That's Smoke and Sound at benning.army.mil.
Remembering and honoring soldiers past and present is a fundamental part of military life. Katie Cook reports on the Blue Star Memorial dedication at the National Infantry Museum, followed by Fort Benning's observance of American Indian Heritage Month in this Fort Benning Roundup.
During a recent ceremony at the National Infantry Museum, the Garden Clubs of Georgia dedicated a Blue Star Memorial along the Walk of Honor. The Garden Club of Georgia spent 2 years coordinating to get the memorial where it is today. Usually these memorials are put up along the highways, but after scouting out areas, they were set on having this one in a location with high visibility. The Blue Star originated during World War II. It was put up in homes of families or businesses that had loved ones away at war. The memorial honors all military that have served, are serving, or will serve in the future.
We want them to know that we care. We may not wear a uniform, but they have a lot of support from many, many people throughout our country, and we appreciate their service.
Fort Benning observed National American Indian Heritage Month at a ceremony in Derby Auditorium. Since 1990, November has been designated as Native American Indian Heritage Month, after a joint resolution approved by President George H.W. Bush. Keynote speaker Lieutenant Colonel Matthew P. Newmeyer spoke about the importance Native American history has in our culture. The Mighty Good Drum Troupe performed historical dances and traditional dress, and even encouraged soldiers to participate in the Friendship Dance.
It's good to give back, you know, being that the soldiers have given us the right to be able to drive those cars and travel all over the United States and do all the things that we love to do. The soldiers that are here have done that so that we can, you know, come and educate and do what we like to do in the United States and be free.
Katie Cook, Fort Benning TV.
German and Italian veterans of World War II lay in rest in Fort Benning Cemetery, a testimony to our nation's history. Each year, Fort Benning takes the time to reach out to the local German and Italian communities in somber recognition of that history.
Each November brings with it German-Italian Memorial Day, a time for remembrance, mourning, and commemoration. For Germany, the National Day of Mourning was established in 1952 to honor all those who died during World War I or II because of their race, religion, ideology, or fleeing their homeland. For Italy, Italian Armed Forces Day is a day for them to honor all past and present servicemen, as well as the Allied victory in World War I.
So there's a strong community both on the Italian and on the German side here in Fort Benning, in Columbus area, and in Georgia. And I think it's very important to celebrate this event, which has a special meaning, especially for us Germans.
Buried at Fort Benning Cemetery are both German and Italian soldiers who served in World War II. Many of them died as prisoners of war in camps in Missouri, South Carolina, or Georgia. The observance of this day, complete with full military honors, has become a tradition at Fort Benning. It is a valuable gesture of goodwill between the Maneuver Center of Excellence and the German and Italian communities.
I came here a bit than 50 months ago, and I nearly almost felt like coming to second home. Whenever there is something, we feel really supported by our friends and partners from Fort Benning.
The theme for German-Italian Memorial Day always revolves around the need for reconciliation, understanding, and peace. Volkstrauertag, the German National Day of Mourning, initially commemorated fallen soldiers, but it has grown to include all victims of injustice and terrorism all over the world, broadening its scope to adjust for our current times. David Wright, Fort Benning TV.
Coming up next, grade schoolers build their own pumpkin catapult.
There are symbols that represent loss. There are symbols that represent strength. And there are symbols that represent both. Remember, respect, and honor our fallen military heroes and the sacrifice and strength of surviving families who wear the Gold Star pins.
When's the last time you went night shooting? You can go tonight. The MWR Recreational Shooting Complex is offering trap and skeet night shoots right now. It's great for group outings and family fun. Open to all skill levels from beginners to expert. And firearm rentals are available. Go to BenningMWR.com for more information. Make plans now to visit the MWR Recreational Shooting Complex for your next trap and skeet night shoot.
What better way to teach physics and math than with some good old-fashioned flying pumpkins? Students from Stowers Elementary here on post developed some engineering skills with the help of soldiers, engineers, and leftover pumpkins. Katie Cook puts her hard hat on and brings us the report.
Students from Stowers Elementary School Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math class designed a catapult to shoot pumpkins into the sky. The design process started from the ground up. Students used Lego robots to build catapults. They were able to manipulate the robots so they could see how different configurations would affect the pumpkin's projectile path.
When I said, well, you had to learn how to measure an angle or identify different types of angles, they were really eager to learn because they knew that they would have to use the skill when it came to actually building the project.
With hard hats on, students were split up into 3 groups with a structural engineer advising each group. Students applied skills they learned in class to create the catapult. The engineers helped them measure and use protractors to mark angles that needed to be cut.
We showed them different things like keeping it square, keeping it level, and we assembled it just like the plans. And then after we tried it a few times, the axle was bending, so we got a heavier piece of steel, and they learned that things just don't always work like you plan.
After a couple of failed catapult attempts, the engineers collaborated to see how they could improve the design.
They've sat here and actually problem solved themselves. A lot of times the catapult would stump them, so the students were actually able to see how they work through problems and how failure is not an option. They had to keep improving their project to make it the best that they could.
Students gathered and analyzed data by measuring the distance the pumpkins had been thrown, exposing them to using proper units when measuring length.
This is something you can bring to real life situation. It's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, I'm thinking. I have to think of how to build. It's not why my pumpkins are not going far, why it's not enough tension in the catapult. Is that higher order thinking skill that we need to teach our students. It's not all about multiple choice anymore.
After the pumpkins were chucked and measured, they were laid to rest in the pumpkin graveyard.
That was disgusting.
Stowers Elementary is planning on making this an annual event and using the data collected each year to improve future catapults.
Ready? Yes!
Katie Cook, Fort Benning TV.
A pumpkin catapult? A pumpkin catapult. I wish they'd done that at my school.
David, who are you kidding? You wish you could do that now.
Well, it looks like they had a lot of fun. I'm going to have to join them next year. That will bring this edition of the Benning Report to an end.
But you can watch these stories and others on youtube.com/BenningTV or at benning.army.mil.
And be sure to like us on Facebook.
From the Public Affairs Office, thanks for watching.